Good evening, Bluebirds. Welcome to the Cardiff City phone-in. I think this time last week we were very excited about Wembley playoffs. We were looking how many points we were away from the playoffs. Steve and Al, who were on the call tonight, were excited as anything about going to Luton to see the revival. Here we are a week later, back in the bottom three, two defeats. It's 2 steps forward and 2 steps backwards. But what we're going to try and do over the next 45, 50 minutes or so is discuss those games, anything else that hits our minds related to City and current events at the club. And if you're watching, please send in your questions, comments, anything at all. We're happy to take all comments, even abuse for myself for standing in for Steve Johnson once again, who's having a lovely time in Portugal and probably laughing his head off watching me do this. So without further ado, let's just introduce all the guests. So Steve Thomas welcome back, Steve. Good to talk to you again.
Evening, Nigel. Evening, everyone.
We've got Al Worth, who is another regular on the show. So evening, Al. Loving those gates behind you again.
Good evening.
And then we've got Rhys David. Rhys is a first timer on the phone in. So welcome, Rhys. Rhys is when he's home in South Wales, sits in the family stand and sits quite close to myself. So I got to know Rhys really well. He's a practicing medical student in Exeter and doing amazingly well. And as we'll find out over the next 50 minutes or so, his knowledge of Cardiff City tactics and what's going on and what's going wrong down there is pretty supreme. So welcome, Rhys. I've given you a good bill in there. You better live up to it now.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
So here we are then. So it's been a tough week again. Just when we think everything's looking up at Cardiff City, I think we saw 2 stale, tired performances. We'll probably talk about, lack of squad depth, lack of options on the bench, the number of games we're playing in a short time. Do they contribute or not? Have we just lost a little bit of focus? We'll cover all that off. And I guess the best way to do it is let's just go through the games of the last week. So if we start with Luton away, Steve, I know you were there, and Al, you were there too.
Yeah.
I only saw the first half of that game. I was actually at a gig and I was watching the first half on my mobile, and I thought it was pretty much a nothing game what I saw of it, other than Chambers was pretty lucky not to give away a penalty. But when you look at the stats afterwards, it sort of says 56% possession to Cardiff, more shots to Cardiff. But from everything I've read and heard, it never felt that way at all. It did feel like they were a bit bullied out of it, never really got going, looked a bit tired and stale. Is that how you saw it, Steve?
Yes, it was spot on, Nigel, throughout. Despite the fact you were at a gig, I didn't to bother going, so you may as well have been at the gig with you, because it was a very, very good analysis of it. I think, and I said before we went on air, that my biggest concern is that Luton did a number on us. They did sort of suss us out. They did realise a lot comes through Ruben Colwill. They were negating him. They were very physical. You can't complain about it. We can dish it out as well as take it. But I did think that they did a bit of a number on us, and I'm a bit concerned that we've not got any strength in depth there. All our chances seem to be sort of half chances. Yes, we did have a lot of possession, but again, it's the wrong decision in the final third. It's shooting when they should pass. It's getting opening to get a pass off and not doing it. It's just that final third's letting us down again. Also, a little bit concerned that when our first choice 11 aren't there, not wishing to move on to Saturday's game, we really miss Chambers and we really miss Callum Robinson, because we've got nobody to come in. You mentioned as well the lack of substitutions on Saturday, apart from El Ghazi going off. I didn't really see there was anybody who could come on and change the game. And I think that's the problem, is our lack of strength in depth. That first 11 that we were playing and we had that good run seemed to be really sound. But as soon as one of those pieces goes out, we kind of shot ourselves in the foot, because we had nothing else to bring on.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Al, when we were talking last Monday, at the end of the show, you were telling me how the buzz was back with you. You couldn't wait to go to Luton. You were excited about going again. How did you feel about it later?
It's Wednesday night. I couldn't wait to go home. It was difficult to put your finger on it, really, Nigel, to be honest with you. We looked really sort of laggy at Luton, looked a tired performance. And perhaps that then was a taste of what was still to come on Saturday. Saturday's kind of more in my mind at the moment, to be honest with you. And that's in the forefront of my mind. And moving on, I think possibly from Rhys's press conference on Friday, he seemed a bit sort of down in the dumps, and you're wondering whether or not this uncertainty has then gone down to the players as well. You know, they've done they're probably thinking, they've come up in support of him, haven't they? And perhaps they're thinking, well, we've done our bit now. Possibly those above us now, it's their sort of turn to let us know what's going to happen in terms of management. Because to be honest with you, they're not treating Rhys with any respect. And I talk about the hierarchy now. And most of all, they're not treating us with any respect. You know, we deserve, as fans, we deserve to know what's going on. And it's just that level of uncertainty. Yeah. Something's got to be done and done quickly, I think. I would, moving on to what we're probably going to talk about later, but I would give him till the end of the season, because if we bring someone else in now, I think, are we going 2 steps backwards? Is it going to be too late? You know, you get cut adrift in that bottom three. Interesting to see what the, I suppose, the next month, I suppose, is going to bring.
Yeah, it's tricky times, isn't it? Because I think Rhys has done a fantastic job as interim, and we'll cover this a little bit more during the show tonight. But yeah, I just feel as a club, they've got to come out with make a decision. You can't keep. I was reading today, it's 50 days, isn't it, since Bullock was sacked? Yeah. And to be honest, we knew for probably 20, 30 days before that, he was on the brink anyway. So we're talking about a period of almost 3 months of the club being in limbo. And it's just not right. And the thing that worried me was a little bit, they had a fans parliament last week, which I wasn't fully aware of, and we saw the report afterwards. But remember, Delman turned up, didn't it? Someone correctly asked the question, you know, what's happening with Rhys? Is he going to get the job? And all Delman said was no. Is he going to get the job? Are we going to get an imminent decision? And he said no. And that's all he had to say about it. The communication of how they go about it in the club is absolutely awful. And, you know, that's how they treat the fans. And you get the feeling Rhys is in pretty much the same position, that he hasn't a clue what's going on, but he's got to front up to the media every time, asking him these questions that he can't give answers to. It's just not a healthy situation.
I think the key issue around this as well is the fact that we're walking into January, or sleepwalking a little bit into it, where we've got a number of players out of contract this summer. Gutas, El Ghazi, Robinson, O'Dowda, Mate, Rowles, Ramsey, Gamble Collins, Rinomota, Alnwick. These are players who we need somebody in charge to say which ones to keep, which ones to sell, which ones to just kind of cut loose. And we don't have that at the moment. And we're only a month and a half away now.
Yeah, exactly. And how can you plan for January? I mean, we'll talk about what they need to do in January, but it's as obvious as anything that they've got to bring in a striker. You know, we played with no striker for 90 minutes on Saturday, didn't we? And I think that's one of the huge problems they got there. But how are you going to entice anyone to come to the club if they don't know what's going on manager-wise, what the aims of the club are? It's just not going to happen. It's not going to work.
Well, you're right, Nigel. We are, and Rhys is right as well, in that we're sleepwalking towards January. We have got on the bright side, we have got a couple of strikers coming back in Keon Tete and hopefully Isaac Davis. So I understand Isaac's had a setback, which is bad news from our perspective. But yes, you're right. And going to Saturday as well, I wasn't alone in noticing that Willock didn't seem to know we were supposed to be playing. He was gravitating towards El Ghazi on the left, so they were both on the left, and we had nobody in the middle effectively. I think we are lucky. If Callum Robinson is a fantastic player, he's doing a fantastic job, but he's got that niggling little injury. So 3 games in a week was going to be too much for him. But we've got nobody to come in. And also a big concern to me was how Blackburn's first 2 goals were like a knife through butter with their passing the movement. We weren't going with either of the players. I mean, they look like we were playing Brazil, particularly on the second goal, the way they cut through us. We've got to pick ourselves up. We've got to go again. Rhys said on the subject of players, Rhys said that if he's there, he wants 3 players. We can all see where those 3 players are needed. But to come to Al's point as well, we need a decision. We need to know what's happening going forward. Is it going to be Rhys? If it's not Rhys, whoever comes in has got. We've got this bloated squad anyway. We've got to get rid of players before we can bring anybody in. So we may as well, as you say, Al, we may as well give Rhys the job till the end of the season because he's under contract anyway. and hopefully you know, a few win bonuses.
It's an interesting thing that he said in his press conference on Friday. I don't think that many people picked up on it, but he said just like players are doing their best because they put themselves in the shop window, so are coaches. And he actually said that. And he's come out, you know, you want him to be behind. And it's very difficult, isn't it? He's basically said, well, if I'm doing a good job, someone's going to come and get me. Yeah. And that's hardly motivational stuff when you've got a game the next day, when your manager's saying things like that, and the players are supporting that manager. But it's nothing. None of this, Steve, comes as a surprise, does it? I mean, you know, it's only the way that we've always the club's hierarchy have treated people basically with disdain. It's almost they think they know best. And I don't think that's going to be the way. It would have been great to have gone into the international break on the back of perhaps, you know, a win and a draw. As it is now, you know, people have got 2 weeks to stew. Rhys has come out and said, hasn't he, it's an ideal opportunity for clubs to get a new manager in. And it wouldn't surprise me if we come out the other end and we have a new manager. And then where do we go?
I think this is the problem, because if not Rhys, I think they've got to appoint a manager now, because if you're going to bring in a manager, you need to give him December to take a look at that squad so he can see firsthand what he needs to do, so he can strike and start lining up his January targets. But you can't continue with Rhys in limbo to January. And, you know, there's talk of, what's the name, the old Watford manager, you know, he could be available in January. That's the last thing they want to do, is just string it out for longer. And, you know, he comes in January, doesn't know who's here, who's doing what, and what's required. It's you know, it's not a way to run any business, is it? Let alone a football club.
I think the key thing that they were trying to avoid was the issues we've had in previous years, where we've tried to bring in some manager, we've seen his dead cat bounce, and we've gone, "Oh, he's fantastic," and then that's immediately turned sour. We saw it with Mick McCarthy, we've seen it with Steve Morris, and we've seen it with a couple others. But now it's getting to the point where we need to kind of make that decision, isn't it? Where we've had enough time to judge him. And we just need to accept.
Really good term, Rhys, dead cat bounce, because, you know, McCarthy came in. Did he win his first 5? And the same when the other new managers came in. We want to avoid that, but I think if Rhys is going to stay, he's got to be backed. He's got to get the players in. It's been refreshing to see more attacking football, and we won the 4 consecutive home games until Saturday. But we've now got to bounce back, and this is the first time. Yeah, we'll let him off Hull. That was his first game, but he's now got to get the players back up again after 2 defeats.
I didn't see Saturday coming. The performance, some of those performances, you know, NG for example, Holland for example, there were some the back 4 were at 6s and 7s in that first half. And I don't know if anyone's. I didn't realise how many passes the Blackburn had for I think it was their second goal, wasn't it? The 42 passes. When I've watched it back, they've done that, but there's been not even any challenges on them.
No,
I mean, they've just passed it around. We've just let them pass the ball around at will. And I think we were lucky at halftime to only conceded the goals we had. They had so many chances, and they probably just couldn't believe their luck. You know, that we were as poor. Very disappointing.
I think the thing.
How much do you put it down to just them being off key, and how much do you put it down to the players just being knackered? You know, because we have been flogging the same 11 or 12 players, haven't we, every game on this Rizza run? And it's just felt like a couple of them have hit the brick wall in the last week or so.
We mentioned, didn't we, before we came on air, that this Wednesday to Saturday is a new thing, isn't it? You lose a day's recovery, and you'd mentioned, I think, Steve or Nige, you know, Luton came off the back of it and lost 5-1, didn't they? So it is difficult when you get these Wednesday games, and if you can't freshen it up. You know, it's all very well saying, they're professional sportsmen and so on and so forth, but it's a high intensity game now, isn't it? You know, and you need, it's very much a squad game, and I think Saturday, what we showed in our squad is that it's lacking in depth.
I think, you know, every game's important, but the next 3 after the international break are going to be absolutely massive. We've got Sheffield Wednesday away. We've got Queen's Park. We've got Sheffield Wednesday away, who we beat twice last season. We've got Queen's Park Rangers, who are in the bottom 3, and then we've got Coventry, who we beat twice last season. So if we fail to get a serious points tally out of those 3, then I think we've got to look at the whole
Yeah.
setup, because we are definitely heading downwards. It has been argued that the previous games have been easier. However, Blackburn were coming off a very poor run. Was it 7 hours they hadn't scored for?
Yeah, they hadn't scored for ages before they played us.
First away win of the season for them as well.
Scores again. Sorry, Rhys.
First away win of the season for them as well.
Talking of away form, I was that Luton game meant it's now 9 aways since we hadn't won in the last 9 aways. The last one was back in Birmingham, which was in March time. Can you remember who scored that day?
The fella on loan from Forest.
Yes, you're right, Josh Bowler. But Cardiff, I mean, even though we haven't been fantastic the last couple of seasons, the away form has been pretty good, but the away form just seems to have gone rotten on us, doesn't it? In those 9 games, we've had 3 draws, 2 in the derbies, Bristol and Swansea, and West Brom. The others, we've been relatively well beaten, and that's a real worry. I think you're quite right, Steve. 2 of the next 3 games, there are ways where you think, yeah, we can get a result at Sheffield Wednesday or Coventry, but they need to start showing what they're doing at home now, when they're playing away as well, because it's just not happening away at the moment, is it? Yeah. And again, I still haven't seen the Luton goal. But, we talked about Blackburn's goals being soft at the weekend, but I think the Luton goal was quite soft from a set piece as well, wasn't it?
It was. It was a corner, and the Luton player headed it in when he was marked by El Ghazi, who seemed to be, may as well have been sitting in the stand with us behind the goal.
It's anyway. I think one of Cardiff's strengths the last year or so, or more than a couple of years really, has been their ability at set pieces, defending them and attacking them at the other end. But we just seem to have lost our way with that altogether at the moment, don't we? I noticed on Saturday we had 12 corners, but I can't remember any causing a single problem.
Do you know what, Nigel, we were saying exactly that on the weekend. Every time we were getting a corner, normally you think, something will come of it. And then I was trying to think the last time we scored from a corner. It either doesn't beat the first man or it overhits everyone, It's just that straightforward delivery. We're just not doing it, are we?
Was it Perry NG again?
Against Millwall, wasn't it? But that's been an exception, hasn't it? It just has not happened for us this season at set pieces at all. And I think when I look at probably more than half the goals Cardiff have conceded have been preventable this season. There's probably a lot more than that. They just seem to be gifting soft goals. We went through that spell, didn't we, where we kept 4 clean sheets in 5, and now it's almost slipping back into some old habits. So I know you spoke on Saturday, Steve, about we really miss Chambers. I actually felt that he was one of those players who, while started to look tired, and I thought, from what I saw of him at Luton last week, I thought he was getting bullied by I can't remember the name of the player now, the Luton forwards, but he's pretty tasty anyway. And when, of course, he wasn't even in the 16, was he, at the weekend? He's out injured, and in comes Darland, who I think is a prospect. He's looked pretty useful, but he looked completely unfit, didn't he, at the weekend? Yeah. He just wasn't with it at all.
Yeah.
To be fair to him, he's still adapting to the division. It's his first start since his injury a few months ago, but it wasn't the best performance, was it? He looked... Yeah. It completely shook our defence up as well.
Can I just pick up on a point that I've got the comments coming through next to me as well? That Richard Lewis, evening Richard, doesn't help when there's an early kick-off on the Saturday after a Wednesday game either.
Yeah.
No.
Not new TV deal, all these early kick-offs. I've no doubt long-term it'll do more harm than good to attendances and season ticket sales. Yeah, I mean, we've had, 3 o'clock kick-offs at home this season, Leeds and Norwich. All the rest are 12:30, including the first 2, Sunderland and Middlesbrough. The fans who actually go to the games get a really raw deal.
I think those of you who have to travel, you travel for you travel considerable distance for the City home games. But even people locally, there was still on the weekend there was one little crash, and there were loads of people streaming in after 12:30. It's difficult for anyone to get there, and you've done that a couple of times. The weather's going to get worse and so on, and people are just going to pack it in, aren't they? They're just going to, and Richard said right there about season ticket sales and so on. If you're looking at the start of the season, if you've got kids who play Saturday morning football, they can't go anymore. You used to see kids sort of rock up in their kits in the afternoon, didn't you, if they've been playing in the morning. Most most of us who've had kids of that age, you want to see your kids playing football more than you want to see Cardiff City. So, but from the club's perspective, or all of the club's perspective, they make so much money now at Sky, don't they? That, you know, we're way, once again, the fans are way down the pecking order. As long as they get the Sky money, then they're all happy. But I think a lot of people will not get season tickets. I mean, going away, Sheffield Wednesday away is at 12:30, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
it's great if you're a TV fan, because I did put on Twitter before. Probably about 29-30 of Cardiff's league fixtures this season will be on Sky.
Yeah.
That's no incentive for people to go and find 30 quid to go down to the stadium to watch a game at 12:30, is it? And if you look at the crowds this season, they're roughly about 10% down at Cardiff. They were 21,000 average last season, with just about 19 at the moment. Saturday was 17,800, I think it was. So,
and they counted all the season tickets, don't they? Anyway, so the actual walkout is a lot a lot lower.
It's just not happening, is it?
No.
And and I think I think most of us are the same. We like to meet our pals, go for a drink, have a chat first, then go to the game, maybe have another drink afterwards. This 12:30 thing kills that as well, just the social side of it, which is important. You know, we all love to watch the football, but we all like to meet up with our mates and have a chat about everything, don't we? And it's just not happening this season. These 12:30s are just, personally, they're doing my nuts. I'm not enjoying them at all. The atmosphere down at the stadium is dropped considerably. I know it's not been great down there the last couple of years, but bearing in mind, Saturday, we were going for the 5th successive win down the stadium. It felt quite flat.
I've always said, right, that you get the best atmosphere when people come out a couple of pints beforehand. And I'm a firm believer. I'm a firm believer in that. You know, if you've had a couple of pints, everyone's a bit sort of merry or whatever. Some of us more merry than others. But no, I do think that adds to it. You know, and if you've got a 12:30 kickoff where everyone has literally gone straight from home, most people bypass the pubs, don't they? Really, they go straight to the ground. And I agree with you. I think it is noticeable. And some people, it's a lot easier, isn't it, to now just sit in the house and watch it. What has happened, though, we've got far more Cardiff City experts now because more people are watching us. So I'm finding now a lot of people are going, oh, yeah, they're going, that player, he's rubbish. There we go.
Yeah, and they don't have to listen to Ty Hunt, do they, watching it on TV? There's that advantage as well. So, going back to the Blackburn game then, if we cover that one off quickly, again, I don't go overboard on stats, but the stats were massively in Cardiff's favour at the weekend. 63% possession. I know a lot of that was because of the second half where they really tried their best to get back into the game. 20 shots to 11, more on target. But you never felt that, did you? You know, we were always chasing that game. It was a bright opening, but, we went behind relatively early and just never looked like getting back into it, despite our best endeavours.
Yeah, it was well summed up, Nigel. I think before I came on here tonight, I spoke to one of my friends who saw the last half hour on the telly on Saturday, and he said we looked quite good in the last half hour, but he didn't know what had happened in the first hour, of course, because in the last half hour we were trying to get back in the game. We got the penalty, and then I think Jack Anak might be a bit disappointed with the third goal.
Yeah.
But again, they broke on us. They broke on us in numbers, and again, I think it all comes down to the fact that both Luton and Blackburn, I think they both did a number on us. They worked out how to play against us. They know that we're pushing the fullbacks forward, so there's gonna be gaps if they can get the ball behind us. And we're very static. Having the 5 means that we miss out on a player in midfield. So we're also failing there. I think big test now for Rhys. And I'd like to sit back on the fence. I've been previously saying let's give him the job, but let's see how he gets on the next few games now. But then again, I'm contradicting myself. How long do we do this for? How long do we give him? Oh, we'll give him 3 more games. We'll give him 3 more games. We've got to make a decision.
I think the big thing where we kind of fell apart against Blackburn was their press. Blackburn worked this out completely. They managed to work out exactly where to stand, and they picked up 3 or 4 chances off that. They managed to dispossess Alnwick early doors. They managed to dispossess Garland a couple of times. And because of that, we weren't able to play out. I looked back at the stats for Cardiff, and from we give away some of the highest number of possessions in our own third of anybody else in the division. We also are fantastic at pressing ourselves with this recent change by Rhys. We've won the most balls in the final third of any other team. But it's giving it away in our third. That's a huge problem, and it's costing us clearly.
Yeah, I can remember that moment in the first half where I think it was Elmwick, wasn't it? Quite early on. We were very lucky not to get punished there, and I thought that we're not footballers, are we? We think when they're playing around at the back, they seem to think they're proper footballers. They're not, But the other thing that just concerned me a little bit watching him on Saturday is that there's a couple of players who just look shot to me. Petty MG, I thought it's just finding his way again, but he was caught out of position time and again on Saturday. And then I suppose Ollie Tanner in front of him, we can talk about what he was doing going forward, but he wasn't really getting back that often to help as much as he has been in recent weeks. And I think he was just one of those players who were completely, shot. He needed a rest, but there was no one else really to use in that position, so they persevered with him. But it just didn't seem to. I think it caused a lot of the unbalance. But the first half, it's been a long time since I seen City look that disjointed, and it almost had me thinking, is Bullock back here for the day? You're quite right, Steve. With Willock, who was brought in the side to be a forward, wanted to play everywhere except in the middle, didn't he? And he kept drifting wide to El Ghazi, and El Ghazi got in the middle a couple of times, had a couple of shots, and only bothered the corner flag, I think, once or twice.
Yeah.
And he's really struggling at the moment as well. And that first half was a really tough watch, I thought, and we could have been, if Blackburn were more clinical, they could have been out of sight by half time. We were lucky to still be in it, to have the second half to come back at, I thought.
Agreed, Nigel. Also, I think Richard Lewis made a point about we should have signed Andreas Weimann. Why are we not looking at players like that? I mean, it was his second goal he scored against us on Saturday, the second one he got, I think. And we signed Kanga on loan from Hertha Berlin, and players like Weimann, who are, demonstrably good players in the Championship, we just pass us by.
Andy Weimann has scored more goals against Cardiff than he has against any other side.
I know. It must be for the Wurzels as well.
It's an interesting point here. I know we're repeating a little bit, right? Jeff Dela Cruz has said that Rhys he's got the dressing room now, and a new manager could lose the dressing room. Appointing a new manager could guarantee his relegation. That's an interesting point. Going back to what I said earlier, the players have all come out in favour of him, and you'd think that the players would know something, but the club are just saying nothing at all. I prefer the club to come out and just be honest and say, we're not going to appoint anyone for now, and this is the reason why. But they're just saying nothing at all. So, and the more we're kept in the dark, the more frustrated we become. And I think perhaps we dislike them even further, if that's possible.
How would you feel if you were Rissa, though? Because he's only got a 1-year deal with the club, hasn't he? I think if they appoint anyone else, I can't see him staying now, even if they asked him to stay on as coach, because he's had that spell doing what he's done, and that's probably get on his CV now to get another manager job somewhere, whether it's a Championship or a rung or two down the ladder. But that is obviously where he sees himself now. So he's in this position where they won't tell him what's going on. He's supposed to have gone for a meal with them the Friday before last, which we all knew about. What went on in that meeting? I know it was an informal one, but surely they must have given some indication of where their minds were. But it seems that he's absolutely clueless.
He said in his interview after the Norwich game that he'd had the meeting with them the previous day, and the talks have been constructive. But again, it comes back down to the point that we've got to make a decision. We've got to make a decision now. Is it going to be Rizza in January, or is it going to be somebody new?
Yeah.
We cannot just keep sitting on the fence. I was amazed. I hadn't heard until you said tonight about Mehmet Dalman being asked and just saying everybody says no. Where are we? It's just literally a game-by-game basis.
It's just not a satisfactory position. And I suppose, this time last week when we were winning games, you sort of overlook that, this is just running on and on. Now we've hit a little bit of a brick wall again. It's just come screaming back into the headlights, doesn't it? That it's something that needs to be fixed or addressed. You can't carry on the way we are.
Yeah. Another big issue that we've got is we've got one of the oldest squads in the division now. Our squad has got an average age of 27.8, which is as old as it was back when we initially got relegated from the Premier League. So now all the kind of time where we were building towards something, that's gone away. This was supposed to be the year that we set the light and we pushed for playoffs. And Tan has backed this a little bit, but it's kind of fallen away now. We're back at step one again, back near the relegation zone. Need to start again.
Although in fairness to Rhys, the playing, the 11 he's using, he's brought the age right down there, hasn't he? Because I think, was it 2 or 3 games into the season, I think we only have 1 player under 30 on the pitch, if I remember rightly. But he's now got Tanner, Colwell starting regular, Turnbull's in the middle, and some of the older guys, they are now sort of pushed to one side a bit, I guess, or injured. So I think he's done a little bit there to bring the average age of the playing side down. But yeah, it is a real problem with the squad, and obviously, as we know, the youngsters, for whatever reason, and Reindorf is a name that seems to be on a lot of people's minds, just don't seem to be in consideration at the moment.
I think it does come down again to how well Blackburn played against us on Saturday as well. Because there's one point when we've all been very impressed about the midfield three of Colwell, Robertson, and Turnbull.
Yeah.
One point, Turnbull attacking the Canton stand in the second half was bringing the ball out. You saw him look up, look around, and you could see in front of him there was nobody free. Everybody was locked up by the Blackburn defenders. At the end, he passed it sideways and just threw his arms up because there was nobody for him. He's trying to look forward, and there's nobody moving, nobody doing anything, nobody coming short, nobody going long, nobody trying to run off into a channel. There was nobody doing anything for him. It was very, very much like going back to Bullet. And as you said, Nigel, did they bring Bullet back for the day? I don't think so, but there's a lot in what you say. In that we're going back to that. Rhys needs a certainty. If we're going to go Rhys, let's go with it.
Yeah. Would you just going back to Saturday briefly? I thought I was quite pleased with the second half response, and then obviously we had that lifeline with the penalty. I couldn't believe, and I was reading today, it was the first penalty we've had for 55 matches. That's crazy, isn't it? What a shocker of a penalty it was, but lucky enough he had a second bite at it and scored. But I thought they were giving it everything they had, so you could tell a couple of them were running on fumes. But were you surprised that there were no substitutions made? Because obviously we had El Ghazi come off half time, and we'll come back to El Ghazi in a minute because I think he is a player we need to talk about a little bit. But he came off for Matty, and then I know we didn't have much on the bench, but surely when you're 1-0 down going into the last 15 of the game, your team seemed to run out of ideas. You did have Ashford there. You did have Kanga there. I know they don't, we know their limitations, but would you not have thought, we need to get another forward on, or we need to change something to try and offer something different? Because we were going nowhere, were we? Even though there was lots of pressure, it wasn't really converted into efforts on goal or anything that was looking like a threat.
No, 100% agreed, Nigel. Looking at it, you didn't think there was anybody that would change a game there. We had to do something. We had to do something because Blackburn had us locked up. At least if he'd brought a different player on, we could have seen, hopefully, that there may have been some opportunities. Kean Ashford has made a difference when he's come on before.
Yeah,
he might have been a player to bring on. Or are we going to go? If we're going to go lump it forward, let's get Kanga on. We've got nobody else until the players come back from being injured, or we get somebody new in January. It's a difficult position to be in. Yes, to answer your question, yes, most definitely. I thought that there should have been further change. I hadn't realised until you said that it was only El Ghazi that we took off. Yeah,
and that was injury. Most championship teams in just a normal game will use 3 subs these days, won't they? But to only use 1, and that was effectively forced by injury, has really surprised me.
Yeah,
especially coming off the back, like we said, coming off the back of games a few days earlier,
I think it's down confidence in the squad, really. Because if you turned to us and said, "Well, do you want to add Kanga on?" I think if you added him as well, and you just started playing with 12 men, I don't think it would have made much difference either.
No, Kanga's a real one, isn't he? He's just I can't see him being here once we get past January. I'm assuming it's a loan we can cut short, but if he can't get off on the pitch when we've got no striker, there's no future for him at Cardiff, is there? You have to say that.
Kanga just looks like some sort of dodgy agent's dealing, doesn't he? It's just like someone's picked up a couple of quid for him coming here, because it just doesn't seem to make any sense to me at all.
Yeah. I've heard it said that, he's supposed to be a really nice guy, and he's very well liked within the changing room from what I hear, but even he sort of realises he's not really fit in, and he's probably not able to offer what City are looking for at the moment. But not his fault. He's here, is it? You know, someone made that decision. But when you looked at his record, I thought it didn't look a strong signing when they brought him in. It was a real surprise.
Sincerely hope we get a decent striker in, and we have got a reasonable record in recent seasons of bringing in a decent striker in January. Looking at Sorry Cabba and before him Jordan Hugel. So
yeah.
You know, we have had people who've come in and have done the business to the level we need to. But to pick up on Rhys's point as well, throughout the years, particularly looking at the years when Dave Jones was in charge, going into Malky, we got gradually better every season. We were sort of building up until we had a team that was capable of challenging for promotion. We built over year after year. Now it's just reset every year, and we've got to have a complete look at everything. Let's decide what we're going to do and go with it.
Yeah. So Al, obviously we got this 2-week break now. I was reading today that there's likely to be a behind closed doors friendly, presumably just using all the players. There's only 3 players away on international duty, I was reading. So yeah, they'll need to do something to keep them fit. But we come back in a couple of weeks. What would you want to do with that team? Would you want to make changes?
Yeah, I always get frustrated at this time because those players, historically, those players who aren't away on international duty are filming themselves jetting off to Dubai on the night after their last game. You know, I always get really frustrated. They seem to like time things really badly. And Ryan Wintle was one for it, wasn't he? You know, he lose against the Jacks, and he posts a photo of his new Porsche online on Monday. You know, I've always been.
I think it's called Tomlinitis. Remember?
Yeah, exactly. And I've always found that. But, you know, I would announce now that you're giving the manager the job straight away. Okay, put everything behind him. Okay, live and die by that, because the way that Tan is anyway, if we had a bad couple of months, you could easily get rid of him. You don't, like I said last week, you don't need to give Rhys a new contract. He's contracted till the end of the season anyway. So just all you got to do is come out and back him and back him.
Give him that assurance.
Yeah, I mean, and I would back him now. And if you know, come the end of January and we're in a right mess, then okay, reassess if you need to. But I think just letting this drift over 2 weeks now, where no one's, all that happens is we just sort of we get ourselves all worked up, basically, don't we? And we just say how bad things are how bad things are going. We can see there's been loads and loads of comments coming tonight. We haven't had a chance to read them, but and everyone's saying pretty much, you know, the same thing. Everyone's on a real downer. And if you go back to last week, we thought we were going for the playoffs, didn't we? You know, and it's amazing. You know, I gave my predictions at the end of last week, and I said, we were going to win both games. I mean, now we just sat, you feel like a right idiot, because you know, we were, you know, Blackburn in particular, we were just totally and utterly outplayed. There was nothing to come from that, but you could almost sense it after he spoke to the press on Friday. It was almost like you could sense something was up. Almost like someone had said to him, "Well, look, you're not going to get this job." Now, you know, he's a human being. Any of us in any job, if our boss said, "Oh, you're here now, but you might not be here tomorrow," you're going to be looking elsewhere, aren't you? Straight away. You know, he's got his family.
Yeah. Well, my reading of that meeting with Delman was when he felt it was quite positive. I think he was expecting something to happen during last week before that game, and the fact that it's dragging on and he's still no near what's going on. Obviously, it was an informal thing, so you know, you're not going to sign off a deal in that sort of environment. But I think he was given the impression that they were quite close. And in fact, didn't Aberdonato, who's obviously gets the ear of people at the club, he hinted last week that they were ready to give him a deal until the end of the season, and that just seems to have gone quiet again. It's so you do wonder what's going on. One of the things I was thinking of, and I have mentioned it on Twitter, obviously we've seen Coventry, quite a shock sacking really with Mark Robins. I think in an ideal world, if it hadn't been for this Rhys run, City fans would be all over Mark Robins, wouldn't we? Because he has done an amazing job at Coventry, bringing them up to the Championship. He's not under contract to anyone. He might want a little bit of time out at the moment. I don't know if he does or he doesn't. But if you were a competent run football club, surely you would want to have a conversation to see if there's any interest there with someone like that, notwithstanding the fact, you know, we are in this difficult position with Rhys. But to me, he feels like a sort of candidate that could sort of get this club and head in the right direction again. But if we don't go for Rhys,
it's
almost like a gift horse, isn't it?
Any of these people that come in, they're going to want to change things. They may want to bring in their entire backroom staff. But again, we've got this full squad, so we can't get anybody in. I understand until we move people out. So how are they going to move these people out? Are we going to get somebody else to come in and just pick up the same players and actually be a coach, or are we going to stick with Rhys? Yeah, I take your point about Mark Robins. It's a huge shock after what he's done in recent seasons, in particular. Playoff final, FA Cup semi-final. Now they've not started too well, and he's gone.
Yeah. They're not starting well, they're doing better than us.
I think the only question I'd ask is, why would Robins want to come to us? Robins realistically has a choice of anybody in the division, realistically. He can pick any side and kind of go there. And realistically, he should be aiming towards a top 6 side and automatic promotion. Why would he pick a side who are struggling and who have been struggling for the past 4 or 5 years, bouncing around the bottom of the table with no clear goal, no clear plan, no clear future, with a really old squad? If it was a project, I could understand that, but the project isn't there for him to build yet.
I think that's going to be the problem with Cardiff trying to attract any manager at the moment, because they look at what's going on down here. Off the pitch, it's a circus, isn't it? It's an absolute circus. And why would any manager want to come here knowing how quickly we turn them over? The lack of support you feel that they get from the board because there's no connectivity, and I don't think we're a good proposition at all. And then obviously candidates that we felt might have been good options, like Schumacher, they put in a press, or they felt they were all underwhelming. But who is there for us?
We're back to Rhys, aren't we? We're back to Rhys. It's Rhys, isn't it? It's got to be Rhys. So let's get the certainty. Let's get him to look and see who he can ship out in time for January, and then see who he can get in. If he wants 3 players, he needs to start working on it now.
Did you see at Coventry? Looks like they're going to appoint Frank Lampard. Which, how many chances is he going to get? I can't believe they bin Robins for Lampard, who just fails everywhere he goes, really.
To me, it feels like we need a bit of a Russell Slade, somebody who's not necessarily a fantastic manager, but somebody who will put the club first and will spend time in that back room, just trying to make sure that everything's aligned correctly, get the right players in, make the right dealings.
That's a good point, Rhys. I don't know if any of you saw that podcast with Sean Morrison on, and he was saying about how Russell Slade did a fantastic job, and he's very, very underrated, not rated as highly as he should have been by the fans, because if he didn't come in and do what he did after we've been relegated, we would never have got Warnock years. We'd never got back to get back to the Premier League again. Obviously, there are a few things to come out of the Warnock years that may be appropriate to discuss on another occasion, but we would never. He needed to clear all the players out after that hugely bloated squad we came down with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer with.
From memory, he halved the wage bill and made us finish at 7th or 8th, just outside playoffs.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic record. I know it's great, but still, it's something like that where we need somebody to just work on us for a little while, and then hand us over to somebody who's able to take us up to the next step.
I think that's what I like about Rhys. I think he's very honest, isn't he? Win or lose, he's very honest in his opinions. Bullet used to make, we'd lose 1-0 at home or whatever, and he'd make out how unlucky we were, and it was a thriller. We barely put a shot on target in the game. It's so I think he's very honest, and he's likable.
Yeah,
he's a likable guy, and you want him to do well. I think if he is given a job, he needs some support as well, because we saw this with Steve Morrison, didn't we? And we saw it. You put him in there. Morrison was arrogant, we know that. But, without someone to give them advice and help them when they're pretty much novices into the role, they soon get found out in a short period of time. And that would be my worry with Rhys, that he's being, it's not exactly turbocharged into this position, but he'll have very limited experience. You've got a board who are, less said about them, the better, really. But you don't always get you're not going to get their help, advice, or time in the way that you would at any other club in this championship. It's really not a good setup at Cardiff, and that would be the one thing that worries me about Rhys. That if he gets the job, then he's going to lack the support that he'll need come January and come the rest of the season.
Yeah, a couple of things to say about that, Nigel. I think, first of all, I said last week I thought he was eloquent and articulate. That he did come out after the game on Saturday and said that the first half performance in particular was unacceptable.
Unacceptable.
Cannot start the season like that. And also, wasn't he getting advice off the senior pros in Ramsey and Rawls as well? Particularly after the Plymouth game, he said he got Ramsey to have a look at a few things. Yeah. He came down and said that. So yeah, put the support in for him. But yeah, I think comes down to the conclusion. I think, looking at the comments as well, we need to make a decision, and we need to make a decision now. Yeah. And there's nobody. Who are we going to get in this better? To pick up on Rhys's point, who's going to want to come to Cardiff now? Rhys is already there. He's already got a contract. Let's get the uncertainty out of the way. If Mehmet and Kenchi are watching this, please.
Who's them in? So, Rhys, obviously, by the time we get to the next game, hopefully we'll have Chambers back. We'll have Robinson ready. Possibly a Tete for the bench, I don't know. Would you want to make any changes in our starting lineup from what you've seen the last couple of games, or would you just?
I think we'd have to, wouldn't you? After two big losses like that, Robinson's the key one. If Robinson's fit, he has to be in the side, because without him, we've got no function in number 9. I know number 9's a difficult position, and we've always struggled for them the past 15 years. Barkey for more, and maybe Cabba, but Wilcox is not a false 9. Meite does best because he's physical, but even him, he's not going to get us goals. The only player I could kind of throw up there, the physicality side of things might work, but he is underperforming scoring-wise, is El Ghazi. I'd be tempted to give a go up there, because he does have experience scoring goals, previously scoring 10 in 28 in the Premier League.
Yeah. Well, let's go there with El Ghazi. Because for me, I think he's been the biggest disappointment of the season so far. Obviously, it was going to take him time to get fit, but he's now been playing regular for us since the end of August. He's had that one tap in the other week, but he's had a few good chances and he's fluffed as well. But he just does not seem to be getting going at all, is he? You know, at this level, he should be dynamite. It just doesn't seem to be happening. And I'm starting to question whether he deserves his place in the starting lineup.
But then who would you play instead? The problem then, Nigel, is who would you play instead? I mean, when we're doing well, I think we've got a strong bench when we're doing okay. But then the problem is that when we're doing badly, I think there's no one to come on. You know, it's really, really difficult.
No. I mean, the one option for me, I would say is, whether you push O'Dowda up and Bagan at left back, because I think Bagan was unlucky to be dropped a few games ago for O'Dowda. Having said that, O'Dowda's been absolutely flying, arguably our best player the last few games, hasn't he? Yeah. So, is it that, or is it you give Willock a try there? But then on the other side, I think Ollie Tanner's been struggling to get a bit again. He got going the other week, and in the last couple of games, he's maybe one of those players who's just overtired at the moment. He's never played so much football, really, at this level as he has the last few weeks. And has that gone to him? But he's just not, either side. It's not quite happening at the moment with those two, is it?
Yeah. Jeff De La Cruz made exactly the same point as you have, Nigel, with suggesting Bagan left back and O'Dowda left wing. That would then move El Ghazi out. He's also pointed out, thank you, Jeff, that it's Ritza, not Rizza. So profuse apologies on that.
Ritza.
Ritza.
I'm going to call him over.
Perry NG is Perry Ung, isn't he, apparently? Did you see that the other interview with Singapore TV? And he said, my name's Perry Ung, but everyone calls me Perry NG. We had that conversation.
Are there any other comments that are, Steve, that worth mentioning?
Richard Davis has said, evening, Richard, El Ghazi not fit, loses the ball too often, got in the way of Turnbull's shot on Saturday. Yeah, I was amazed to see that goal kick when I saw it live at the Surround. But yes, he hit our own player. Steve Wiggy Wiggins, evening Wiggy, El Ghazi seriously struggling up there, had a half chance Saturday, wasn't interested. Johnny Morcado, Bullet had us with the least shots in the league, lowest XG in the league, but he felt we were doing enough to win games. It was shocking. What else we got? John Bartley Wilson Stubbs. Evening, John. The rumour about was Cobb appointed director of football and he wouldn't communicate at all with him. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Vincent Town.
I've long had this theory, okay, that and I know I'm look at some of the players, but I often think that if they're not involved on international duty, they're on the beach, and they just minds. And the amount of times last year we pointed it out just before the international break, we were just look feet off the gas. Oh, it's okay. I'm going away on holidays tomorrow. And they just didn't seem to be at it at all on Saturday. And it's very difficult to put your finger on how we were as bad as we were. Because the first half, it looked like Blackburn were like the best team we've seen down there this year. They weren't. It's just that City just did not turn up.
These international breaks, we all love Wales. I know we're all big Wales fans here, but it's now 3 international breaks in 3 months, isn't it? And then that's contributing to this condensed league program where you're finding they're playing 3 times in a week, and then because of TV demands, even within that period, it's sort of condensed the time between games as well. And it just feels to me that that's not a schedule that's going to be sustainable over the coming years. There's a lot of talk, isn't it, about players struggling and breaking down, and we see the number of injuries you get at Cardiff and how long some players take to come back. And it just feels to me to be more and more of an issue. I know, when we were kids, players would play 40, Phil Dwight would play every game of the week, even on a broken leg, wouldn't he? But the game today is so much faster and athletic than it was back then, and it puts more demands on the body. And I just feel that, what we see with Cardiff for last week is the epitome of everything going on.
Yeah.
You get 2 weeks off, and then you're playing 3 games in 7 days, and that's going to happen after the next Wales break now. And you just see players looking tired, lethargic, whatever you want to call it. It's very hard for them to stay full on focused when it's like that all the time.
We were talking about it as well on Saturday nights that there's so many foreign players in the Premier League that most of the best British players now are falling into the Championship, and I think the standard of Championship football is very, very, very good. And it's almost like you don't come across a poor team, do you, anymore? And a team perhaps you think you get something against. You see how well, for example, Sunderland have done this year with good young players. And I'm noticing you think, we'd said last week, I thought last week, we'll turn Blackburn over, they'll be fine, don't worry. And then you see them, the way the speed, their movement on the weekend, it wasn't just as bad as we were. Some of the stuff they were coming up with, I was thinking, well, it wasn't like, I hate going back in the day, it's terrible, isn't it? But I just think we're seeing a better standard of opposition, aren't we? And it's ever more difficult to keep up with the standard of that opposition, and you've got to throw money at it. And if you haven't got the money, you're not gonna compete. I don't think. I think the league is a very strong one, and as a result, it's more easy to get relegated now. You're not too big. Look at Birmingham City. You're not too big a club to go down anymore, are you?
No. And teams are very well organised as well and disciplined. And we see that's why you see some teams who probably haven't got the best squads in the world, but they perform very well in the Championship because they're more together. And that was one of the things I thought with Cardiff on Saturday. We did look a bit like a little bit back to being a collection of individuals. The link-up play wasn't strong enough. That first half, they were so disjointed. It was unbelievable. It'd been almost like 11 strangers out there at times. Yeah. And I don't see that happen so much with other clubs. It's been a bit worrying. That happened quite a bit with Bullet as well, didn't it? So, hopefully it's just a blip. And we got these 3 games coming up, but they can refocus and get going again. But you're right. If we come back with a bad result or 2, we're in serious trouble again, aren't we? At the moment, though, ironically, next game, Sheffield Wednesday, we're up in 14th, I think. We go and win there, and we actually climb above them in the table. So it's very tight and congested. 1 or 2 wins, you're flying. 1 or 2 defeats, you're in trouble, and that's what we've seen, haven't we, the last couple of weeks?
Plymouth getting that draw at Derby on Saturday put them above us. And I was going to say that, just thinking while you're talking there, Nigel, the two home games that I was confident about as winning, Plymouth and then Portsmouth, we took the game to them at the start. We scored 2 early goals, 2-0 up in 12 minutes against Portsmouth. We were 2-0 up before the sending off against Plymouth. So, we played like the home team, which we don't, home team was going to start attacking. But again, against Blackburn on Saturday, we didn't do that. Why did we not do that? I don't really understand.
Yeah, it's a conundrum, isn't it? That's why we support Cardiff City. If you want to see consistency week in, week out, then support someone else. Cardiff, they are going to be this roller coaster ride. They always have been, haven't they? But I do feel that more than ever this season, that because of the limitations with the squad and where we are, and maybe the way we're trying to play football now, more attacking football, we might see a spell of 2 or 3 wins. We're going to feel great, and that's going to be followed by another slump. I think it is just naturally how it's going to be. But that's also the championship for you, isn't it? That's why it's such a great division. Anyone can beat anyone, and they do.
Here we all there. The only difference this week is Rhys substituted on for Steve Wiggy Wiggins. The last week we were all on here. We were on cloud 9 last week. It was so positive. It was great.
I know, nothing to complain about at all, was there? But this week, what a contrast. It's you, Rhys. You're the factor.
Yeah, it's clearly me. No, the thing is, Cardiff, pretty much the past 5, 6, 7 years, we've lurched from disaster to disaster. It's amazing to see how many different forms of disaster we can find and get ourselves involved in. Yeah. It's like a bad soap opera.
It is. Cardiff City are a soap opera. It's probably the greatest, better soap opera than Corrie and EastEnders. More ups and downs, more dramas, more fights in the pubs. It's all there. So anyway, we've got a couple of minutes to go. Before we just talk about the next couple of games, international break. I know we're all Wales fans as well, so there's a couple of big games coming up for Wales. One in Turkey on Saturday afternoon. I think it's a 5 o'clock kickoff Saturday, and then Iceland down here, where win those 2 games, we win the Euro Nations group and get promoted. But really, it all hinges on winning in Turkey, isn't it? If we do anything other than win in Turkey, we can't possibly win that group, I would say, because Turkey will see it out, won't they? But is that possible? It's just one of those places where we never seem to do well.
I think we do well to get a draw in Turkey. Hopefully beat Iceland, but head over heart now. I think a draw is a good result in Turkey.
Yeah.
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, special word for Harry Wilson, what he's doing at Fulham at the moment. Can't get in the first team. He just comes on and scores goals. It's pretty incredible, isn't it? And I think over
that's one of the big regrets I got. That one season where he was here and he did some amazing things here. That was the COVID season, and we never got to see him or keeper when he got the 20, did we?
I know.
One season we get a goal scored, and none of us can watch him in the flesh.
I think Harry Wilson's probably been Wales' best player over the past 12 months. I think he's been absolutely fantastic. First, he was props in Gareth Bale's shadow for to get into the team. Now he'd be the first name on the team sheet for me. He's been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, big worry in midfield. And Ampadu still out injured, isn't he? And Jordan James, he still hasn't started a game in France, has he? And that really surprised me because he looked like he was on the way to great things. But they'll be asking him to step in for 2 matches again for Wales. That's quite an ask for when you're not even playing first team football.
It's the
squad depth for Wales. It's always going to be an issue. I had a look at the number of professional footballers different countries have. Wales only have about 150. Yeah. Realistically, to get to the semi-final of the Euros with a squad with 150 professional players, of which 25 are under the age of 19 on our youth contracts, is insane. But midfield is going to be the issue. I'm shocked that Joe Morrell hasn't got himself another club.
Yeah, he's still a free agent, isn't he?
Still a free agent. Just fascinating to see, given how much Rob Page talked him up recently.
Do you think Colwell's going to play in any of these games? I can see him playing against Iceland on Tuesday. I don't think he'll start in Turkey, but I think Bellamy might be tempted to give him a game next week.
He was there on Saturday watching him, wasn't he? I understand.
Yeah. We shall soon find out.
It's not our luck, and he'll play him and he'll get injured.
Yeah. But keeper Moore's out. Fortunately, they found out that Kangar isn't well, so he's not standing in for him. So it's not all bad. Right, just a couple of minutes to go then. 3 games coming up. Steve's already mentioned them. Sheffield Wednesday away next, where we just haven't done well for a little while. We got spanked there twice last season, if I remember rightly. Once in the cup and once in the league.
We beat them twice last season, twice in the league, but
QPR at home, which that's got to be a must-win, hasn't it? Really, and then Coventry away could be one of Frank Lampard's first games in charge of them, so they could be re-energized with that as well. Get the new manager bounce. So, what are you feeling about those games, Steve? I take it you're going to the away games here.
Yes, I'll be going. Tickets on sale Wednesday morning. Get in there, Bluebirds. Get your tickets. I think. Well, heart overhead this time. 7 points from the 3 games.
I'll take that. Al, what do you think?
Well, I know I'm normally positive, but I think we'll beat QPR at home. The other 2 away from home. I hate going to Sheffield Wednesday anyway. So I think they'll I don't think can't see us getting anything there. And I think Coventry will have a new manager effect, as you've sort of intimated, really. So I think we'll beat QPR. I'm not at all confident about either of the other two games.
Yeah. How are you seeing it, Rhys?
I think it's going to be about 4 points. I can see us getting a point against Sheffield Wednesday. I thought they did they played a good stuff against Sheffield United in the Steel City derby, but they're going to be licking their wounds in the next few weeks and going to need to put that right. So that's going to be a very difficult game, especially up in their gap. QPR at home, it's a must win, isn't it? It's one of those 6 pointers where you just have to get the result irrespective of performance. And Coventry, that's going to be thrown up in the air. So I think we'll get a point out of either Sheffield Wednesday or Coventry, but we should get the win against QPR. At least you hope.
Let's hope so, yeah. I'm just hoping that they come back from this break a bit refreshed. One or two players who have been injured come back into the fold, obviously with Callum and, the two Callums, really. If they can come back into it, we're stronger. If we get a Tete on the bench as an option, it makes us stronger again. So, let's just hope we can pick up a couple of W's, because, you don't want to be hovering around this bottom three for too long, innit? If you're going into December still hovering around the bottom three, you tend not to really get up too far away from it over the rest of the season. It can make it a very tough time for the next few months. So, thank you all for getting involved tonight. Steve, always a pleasure to see you, and Al. Hopefully we'll catch up in a pub sometime and have a bevy together. I know, Steve, I said I'll catch you in the Lansdowne at some point soon, so I'll try and do that before a home game. Al, I haven't seen you for a while, but other than on you, but I'll try and catch up with you sometime soon as well. Rhys, I'll see you next time you're done at City. When are you coming next?
It'll be Christmas time. That's
Merry Christmas. All right, I look forward to seeing you then, mate. Thanks very much, everyone, and thanks for listening and watching in tonight. Catch you again soon. Bluebirds.